I like to think of art as really, a lifeline to our humanity. It saves lives, it builds communities, and it's always going to be a thing that keeps us honest to ourselves.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, aka Captain Party.
2026 brings us into our 13th year of podcasting, and we're proud to be here. Thank you to our followers and longtime listeners for voting us Best of the Bay Best Podcast for 3 years in a row, and to SF Film for adding us to the respected list of Essential SF winners.
If this is your first time listening, where the hell have you been? But better late than never. We're like if the rap group Salt and Peppa met the show Grace and Frankie and had a baby. And if you don't understand what that means, ask Jeeves. And now, on with the show. Clink!
All right, Bitch Talkers, we're really excited because we're actually in person for an interview. It's not Zoom. We're talking about the Shaping Legacy Project, which is happening in San Francisco, and we have a couple of the people that are really carrying this project. I want them to introduce themselves and how they are a part of this project. I'm going to start with Angela. If you can introduce yourself to our audience and your part in this huge project.
Sure. So my name is Angela Carrier. I'm a mother and cultural producer based here in San Francisco. And I came on as the senior program manager for the Shaping Legacy Project with the San Francisco Arts Commission back in January of 2024. So I've been stewarding the project since then, which I see myself as a part of a continuum of this work that's been going on around reckoning with monuments and memorials and our commemorative landscape, which has been happening ever since. But I just have a role in it now as stewarding the project.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ellie Tumbuan. I'm a co-founder of the Justice Collective, which is a consultancy based here in the Bay that works with government agencies and mission-driven organizations on all kinds of things: equity strategy, organizational development, and just equity practices. We had the honor of being a strategic partner to Angela and her team at the Arts Commission around really being able to bring a trauma-informed community engagement process to this part of the project. So having spent as a mixed race API woman, my whole life really questioning who gets to be in power in institutions, in narratives and in storytelling, and who gets left holding the consequences. I really saw the value in this project and in Angela's leadership. It's been a very deeply meaningful process for us. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's turn back to you, Angela. For those that don't know, can you describe what the San Francisco Arts Commission is and then what the Shaping Legacy Project is doing?
Sure. So San Francisco Arts Commission is the city's agency that champions the arts. We're a granting agency. We have a gallery, and we have a huge public art program and a civic art collection that we care for. So the Shaping Legacy Project is Shaping Legacy, San Francisco's monuments and memorials. And it was funded by the Mellon Foundation. So we received a grant back in 2023 to continue the work that had already been started around reckoning with the toppling of monuments, the removal of monuments, and what the city is going to do. So this initiative, Shaping Legacy, with the Mellon funding, has enabled us to continue to support artists who are reimagining the commemorative landscape, but then also do a look back at an audit our collection. What do we actually have? What do we need to know? What information is there? And then we continue to engage the communities that are here now with the project.
I've worked in the arts world, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of heartfelt work as well, because people really care doing this. And reading the KQED article and seeing how much organizing there was, I want to talk about what does it look like to organize something like this that goes for years, and you're really taking stock of public art, that it's technically for everyone, but what does it look like to organize this, and how do you even start doing this work? How do you start doing that?
I love that question, and I love the idea of, it's not, to me, again, as I said in the beginning, it's a continuum of work that's been going on forever. Maybe it hasn't been named as this work, but as we know, our community activists, our artists have been doing this, have been telling these stories, have been trying to tell these stories. So I think what was unique in my position coming in is, I also have a background in the arts. I worked at Yerba Buena Center for the Arts for quite a while. I was at the California Historical Society, Bravo for Women in the Arts. And so I'm really had built up a lot of trust with community and artists here in the Bay. So it was, for me, an opportunity to look back and see what was missing in the usual ways of going about business. If you get a grant, you do these things, you check off the deliverables. But in this sense, we had an opportunity to be more holistic about it. We could expand and bring in folks like Ellie and the Justice Collective, organizations that usually don't get a seat at the table and don't get their stories told. Was really critical to me as the project manager, but then also to the agency who has this, charge with, basically upholding, a lot of around equity and inclusion, and what does that look like in practice. So that's when we had, in the city, you have to do open calls. You have to do everything according to a process and a protocol and procedures. So we opened the call, and we would do a lot of direct outreach to organizations that otherwise wouldn't have applied to these kinds of calls. So, Samoan Community Development Center, let's bring in our Pacifica folks, and, let's hear these voices who, don't get to be part of the story. A lot of, Tenderloin Museum. We brought in Gray Area for the Arts. We brought in Cap Street, where, folks who are really doing the work right now, both in the artists that they're bringing on, but also the way that they're shifting their internal structure around how they work here in the city, and how they represent artists and tell the stories that need to be told. So I think that was part of it, is grounding it in this. We had a chance to kind of expand and look and see what's missing. I mean, we all know where the gaps are. Walk around the city, what neighborhoods are missing art. We know what artists aren't getting the funding. We see that, and that's really clear. But this was an opportunity to really hone in on that then and fill those gaps. So with, working with the Justice Collective and being able to see, be informed as we intend to go into these communities where we see there's gaps, where we see they don't have any monuments, they don't have any memorials, they haven't been part of any stories around public art. We can't just go into these communities without having first done our homework and being prepared to confront a lot of the harm and the pain and the trauma that these communities have been through, either directly from our agency, directly from the city, or from just general oppression in this country. We have to go in with an awareness of that, and with care. And so I think the guidance that, Ellie and her team were able to provide when we did these community workshops and meetings around asking, what stories do you have around these monuments? What do you want to see? It was important that we were starting from that base and having that understanding.
Do you mind adding to that a little bit, Ellie, just from your point of view and the work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's such a great question. The things that Angela lifted up, I think, are really core to, honestly, why the Justice Collective is in business in the first place. We think about who gets to define anything, who gets to define what art is, even who gets to define what creativity is. Our communities in this city and in many cities across the world, and certainly here in the Bay, have been some of the most ingenious, the most creative. And who decides who gets to call what behavior art is in and of itself context, right? So the chance to lift up that context is really central to the purpose of why we formed TJC in the first place. It was really such a pleasure working with Angela and her team and the artists. We chose at the end, we partnered around this idea of how can we tell even a little bit more of the story of this process in and of itself, And Angela and her team were really amenable to that, not just, taking quotes from artists or, doing pieces about the art and their stories themselves, but the process is part of the context too, right? And we know that process matters. So that felt really meaningful and really also justice centered, because we're thinking about who gets left out, which parts of the stories have not been told or are relegated to just these different forms of art that, there's a narrative about. So it was incredible to just be able to dig deeper, to pull out more story as a result of that, some edges, some texture, some of the less obvious stuff, and to bring people together too was really cool, because they have things in common. And they also, I personally feel like I got to witness people learning from each other, which has been happening in the city of San Francisco forever, right? There's these kind of untold stories of solidarity that exist that if people knew more about, just the power of that to inspire, to heal, and to motivate us to keep moving to the part about, this being an ongoing project, this being work that didn't start because the project officially started and there was a funder, but the chance to lift up what's already been there was so powerful for us too.
It's interesting, too, because so we all know in 2020, when these conversations first started, we all knew what state we were in, but we didn't know that 6 years later what state our country would be in terms of immigration and talks of asylum seekers and refugees. So this work seems just more urgent than ever. So can you talk about the collective healing and the collective resistance that is so important that ties into this work?
Yeah, I think... understanding this opportunity is about confronting the moment, right? This isn't a time to shy away from the stories that need to be told. This is a time to lift it up more than ever. It just happened that the 5 artists that were selected for these temporary commissions, which is kind of that we're in this final phase of the project, which was, we looked back, we analyzed what we have this report, and then we dealt in the now with these case studies that you mentioned, which are these monuments, 4 that were toppled, 3 that were toppled, 1 that was removed back in 2020, working with communities to have those stories, spend a year having artists activate around those empty plinths and the possibilities. And then in this final phase, we're having artists do temporary installations around the city. And kind of the themes that emerged from these artists that were selected, by the panel are around working class. It's around immigrants. It's around home. It's around these invisible labor and what does it look like to lift that up in these stories here in the city. I think there's not always the opportunity to really focus on power and focus on public memory and lift up artists who are doing work around that and who are doing the work both in community and then making it visible. I think is something that this project allows for, that otherwise we wouldn't be spending this much time on it, I don't think.
I also feel like, adding on to that, Angela, the power of feeling seen right now just matters so much. And the value that this work brings, not just to those artists, but the communities that they come from, the communities that they represent, and the sentiments they represent, too. It gives people hope. It gives people motivation. It meets the moment, I think, in so many different ways. And to what you were saying earlier about, we didn't know what would be coming. It's true for me, and some folks in our communities did project, certain futures if we don't act, if we don't pursue certain work, direction, solidarity together. And so I also feel like, the selection of these artists and those voices who were invited to the table to be heard in a different way was also a way of paying homage to the wisdom they've always had and the community's wisdom that has always been there, which is complex, and simple in different ways.
Yeah, I think also, we talk a lot in this project too around it's taking those moments of protest and the times where the community came together in protest, but getting to that next stage of proposing. So we say from protest to proposal. So what does it look like to move from a space of, being against something or like advocating for something to actually proposing what we want to see? And we say, how do we reimagine the world we want to see? How do we reimagine the commemorative landscape or the public, what art is in the public for us to see ourselves reflected in. And so that's another way too that this that we're taking the artists, ideas, and we're actually being able to manifest them and put them into public space. Even if it's temporal, it's an opportunity to see it,
That's
see
right.
it like it's possible. This is possible. We can do this. So yeah.
Yeah, and to highlight that wisdom, some already had a prescription for what to do. And it's like, we just need to come together and do it. And that, feeling that on a visceral level is so healing to me. It's like the answers are there. How cool is that? And we get to use our imagination both individually and collectively. It's so healing to me.
I do love talking about I'm just in my head, I'm like, I like the woo-woo magic of it all.
Yes.
Because there is, especially with art and getting people together that might not connect. And for people that are listening that don't know what this work is, and we talked about the organizing, but like the financials of it, and how do you... and the time that we're in right now is, the arts are not really being funded that well, but how do you continue to do this work, and what does that look like, if you can be as honest as you can be with something like this?
Let's talk about money and power.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Okay.
about
Yay.
it. That's what it gets down to.
Capitalism.
Really, it is. Another, the idea, it's like what is the proximity to power? How does, community want to be represented? How are folks resourced to do this? And the unique opportunity here is this funding from the Mellon Foundation. They're one of these, I call them enlightened funders who have decided we are going to truly invest in cities across the nation and organizations across the nation who are doing this work to really shift what the American commemorative landscape looks like and whose stories are told. So this opportunity is so unique that we got that, $3 million over 3 years, pretty incredible amount and the majority of the, half of the grant is going directly to artists. So that's like over, 1.5 to artists to do this work, to the organizers and to the community groups who do this work. And that question of what's next is huge. What is next? We don't know. Once this ends, we'll see where the city, where it's really where they want to focus the energy, and who will do that. There's certainly plenty of conversation right now about private funding coming in, and what does that look like, and is that the source to support this work, or should the city continue to invest in the artists and the communities and the work that's being done? So that's to be determined. I wish I had, as you said in the woo, I wish I had the magic about to see into the future, but we can hope into the future of what we want to see, and giving these artists an opportunity, if not through the city, perhaps now that they have this in their portfolio of I've done this work in San Francisco, maybe they can continue to get funding elsewhere, or it could help in other ways. The Kenneth Rainin Foundation is also doing incredible work in public space around this. A couple of their upcoming grantees, I think Skywatchers, as well as Weston Taruya and his group, they're going to be doing some work around, kind of public space and public memory and monuments here in the city. So seeing, there are other sources. It shouldn't just be from, the city. I think it should be coming from other sources of funding as well.
There's enough people with money here that need to give back. But I want to get to the beautiful, exciting part. Can y'all talk about some installations that you're really excited about that we should be looking forward to as residents?
I'm happy to start with one of the ones we were talking about this morning. Ariana Martinez Cruz has an event on Saturday, and let me get the name right. It's Threaded Histories is her work. And what I'm really inspired by, I spent a portion of my career in labor rights and economic rights for garment workers. And so her work is bringing together the shared histories of Latino and Chinese communities. And I believe the event will be in Chinatown?
The Mending Circle this weekend is at Kana in the Mission. And then she'll be doing workshops in Chinatown also,
Yeah, so threading histories. And so to me, there's the power of that shared experience that doesn't always get lifted up, that is such a big part of the city's history and many other cities' histories, you know. So I hope that people participate and really see themselves and their families' heritages, whatever role or relationship they have to that part of the economy. Everybody has a relationship to it. That's super powerful. There's another one I'm thinking of, Angela. I'll pass it back to you before I talk about.
Yeah, so I think with Ariana's as well, so she's going to create an installation, a sculptural, but it's made out of fabric. It's like a metal base, but then it's basically the big thread cone that are used in industrial machines. And that'll be placed in the Rose Pack Station in Chinatown, which, more close to you. I'm sure you'll use that line. Yes. So more art there, more for the community. And they have some of the sewing machines that were unearthed during the excavation of to build that tunnel. So it tells that story even more expanded. But she also has a component. So she does these mending circles to bring community together to kind of embody the act of mending, of caring, literally. And then she does a second phase where she creates embroidered patches that are of the shape of the monument that she helps people put on their own clothes if they want, or they can put it. So it's like you're wearing a piece of the monument. You are the monument yourself, your stories, your history. So that's another part of it that I love, is kind of reimagining what it means. Does it have to be a static object in space that you can't engage with, or is it something else that you hold against your own body? So I love that part of her project. The other that you might have passed through on your way in Civic Center is Caleb Duarte's Embassy of the Refugee. And he's one of the artists that decided to engage directly with an object in the collection, the Pioneer Monument, which is in Fulton Plaza between the Public Library and the Asian Art Museum, directly facing City Hall there. And he's built using materials like scaffolding, plywood. He's using tarps and materials that are of labor, materials that are common, but bringing them around. He's created a structure around the Pioneer Monument that's then being wrapped. The scaffolding is wrapped in the gold mylar, which is used blankets at refugee camps to care. So he's making visible these objects of labor that you often don't see, you don't think about. You just think about the architecture behind it. You don't think of the labor and the human that's part of caring for and maintaining these objects. So he's been doing a lot of activations with ambassadors from Central America and other artists here, Pobres Artistas and others based here in the Bay that he's been working with. And it's one of those projects that, again, isn't about the object in the end, the final product. It's about the process. Yeah. It's about living art and creativity in a way that is just, that's life. That's what we do. So it takes, I like to think it takes a lot of mental labor for some folks to rethink that it doesn't have to be a bronze statue of a man on a horse. It could be something else. But that requires you to go outside of maybe comfort zones and outside of how you usually think to think about the labor and the human behind it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for all of your work. We unfortunately have to wrap.
I wanted to say one more thing.
Oh, so never mind.
Oh, sorry.
We will.
Well, if we have another minute.
Yes.
Okay, so Erin and I literally yesterday had a conversation with somebody about, is San Francisco art dying? Is it dead? It's like, what do you still love about San Francisco? What's keeping you here? Because of, we all know the influx of AI and tech, the cacification of the city, sometimes I like to say. So this conversation with the both of you is so empowering, and it reminds us why we're still here, why we still love San Francisco. So can you just sort of touch on that?
Well, even you saying that, I'm thinking we hold this collective public memory of what San Francisco is and can be. Like, we all have a reason. And I think the more we talk about that and come together and celebrate that, that feels like that's also important, like that piece of it. These are reasons why we stay. This is like to see it and to be a part of it. And the longer we're here, I can see the threads of like work from 10 years ago that still continues for the artists who are still here, still doing the work. Sadly, because we have to at this moment in time, like it's not over. I would love if some of these artists could like do something else because we don't have to fight, the system or the power that is in place now. But that's part of it. That solidarity that we build together and building that collective memory for ourselves and for future generations.
Yeah. I was really inspired by the folks that were brought together through this project. I really personally feel like accountability is the highest form of love. And when we share the context of art and more of the story, we are keeping a promise to ourselves and our civic values, right? And the things we say we believe in. And to be able to see these artists and these communities, they're on fire. They're not stopping. They're not giving up. They're there, just the beating heart of the city still. And that is what tells me accountability is possible. Love, keeping a promise to ourselves is possible. All it really takes is supporting community and supporting their voices. Everything else, all the answers are there. It's such a beautiful, healing, and important thing. And, every city is kind of redefining itself right now. San Francisco definitely is. We see that in housing, tech. But one last thing I wanted to share is like just thinking about the influence of AI. So we know that critical thinking is so important always, but is only going to become more important. What besides art allows us to do that more robustly, more in tune with our own values, more in tune with our own identities than the value of art to help us be critical? And so I like to think of art as really a lifeline to our humanity. It saves lives, it builds communities, and it's always going to be a thing that keeps us honest to ourselves.
I'd say mic drop, but they're my mics, so please don't drop it. That was beautiful.
Stay. San Francisco's an amazing place still.
Correct.
Yeah, don't give up on it.
Don't give up on San Francisco. No.
I was just trying to get to this was all fun, but this is the most fun part of our episodes. It's this bitch. So it's, you're either throwing shade on something that's pissing you off, or you're shining light on something that's bringing you joy. So if you want to give it a minute and think about what your this bitch individually is right now in this moment.
Valkyries are absolute joy, thrilling, life-giving. I've seen people have the experience they were waiting their whole lives to have at these games. And it feels very San Francisco in a way, too. So that's one of the biggest things for me right now. Yeah, the best.
And I'm gonna stay on the positive this bitch, but I am loving. This is a season of public music festivals and free art in the city, and so Stern Grove had Bomba Estéreo the other day, and I didn't. I got the tickets. I got the lottery tickets,
coveted,
and then we didn't get to go. And my daughter loves them too, so I was like, but we could stream it. We could watch it and still see it and feel the energy. So yeah, I love that part of it. I love this season. Yerba Buena Gardens has theirs.
Yes.
There's just art, and there's ways to be in community and celebrate and feel the joy and the positivity of what's still here. So yeah, I love that. I love the free music.
Yeah, me too.
This is really a special conversation. Thank you so much, Angela and Ellie, for being on Bitch Talk. It's called the Shaping Legacy Project, and there's going to be so much more to go, so we can't wait to talk to y'all again about the future or the present. Thank you so much for being on Bitch Talk.
Thank you. This is fun.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.